Agent Secrets. I am here with Frank DeMarinis. He is my special guest, and we are going to talk about how to leverage technology, how to generate better leads, how to be better at your follow-up. Frank knows his stuff. He has been working with real estate agents, helping them just be better for, 25 years?
25 years, Kristie.
Crazy.
We've known each other for 25 years. We've been working together for 25 years.
I know.
Does that mean we're old?
Uh, it might. But you know what? That's okay. That's okay. We still like to
We're
keep up.
wise now.
We are. We're a lot wiser. And yeah, I think we've learned a lot. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about where you are right now.
Well, currently I'm on vacation with the family. We're in Orlando, soaking up
Yeah.
some sun.
Nice.
But never an issue taking time out for you, Kristie. So
I
I
know. Thank
appreciate
you
you having me
so
on, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Well, I know that coaching is a big part of your life, and not only do you coach realtors, but you also coach your kids. In
Oh,
fact, that's where I thought you were right now, at some sort of athletic event with
yeah,
one
we're in
of your.
Orlando at a cheerleading competition.
Ah, okay.
I don't coach my kids with cheerleading, but I got to tell you, my kids are the toughest coaching clients I work with. I got to tell you.
They just don't listen. They just don't want to listen to you.
My dog's the only one that listens to me in my house, I got to tell you. But yeah, whether it's the kids or whether it's coaching real estate agents, it is an extremely rewarding, thing to do, is to help people get better and achieve success.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It is. It is. It can be very, very rewarding. And you've worked with literally thousands of agents, and I'm sure have learned a ton over that time. So I am going to try to get as many of those gold nuggets from you as I can during our conversation today, because there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to cover. And I think that for many, many real estate professionals, they are constantly striving to do better. In fact, I don't know many other industries where the mandate is to constantly improve and do better. And self-improvement is such a big part of the real estate field. So over the last 25 years, what are some of those fundamental principles, whether it be lead generation or whether it be follow-up, that you think have remained constant despite all the technological changes that have happened?
Listen, great question. You talk about getting better, and that's the world we live in. We coach, you're helping people get better on your end and what you do. But what's funny about real estate agents is it's one of those industries where people do get stuck doing the same things over and over again, where agents just keep doing what other people do. And a lot of that advice is misguided and ineffective. One thing that Craig really emphasizes is differentiation, right? Trying to make sure that you as an agent are not like all the other agents in your marketplace. You want to be different and you want to be better. So that differentiation is really, really important. And plastering your picture and your name and your company logo everywhere is extremely limiting. But that's what a lot of people think they need to do to be successful, or door knock or cold call. And that's just a tough way to build a business.
Absolutely.
And so it's funny, but the world we live in is absolutely to help people be better. People who are motivated to take their businesses to the next level, not afraid to do the extra work that's necessary to build their businesses. And that extra work separates them from the vast majority of real estate agents out there, small business people out there. And so, the people who put the work in, it's really rewarding, like we talked about earlier, to see them get those results.
Right.
But, over the last 25 years, sure, a lot has changed, like technology, for sure. Look at, where we put our ads, okay? Where we run them is definitely different from 25 years ago, right? Newspapers, for instance. That's changed where those ads appear, but there are definitely constants that haven't changed. So the first thing I got to tell you is, in my mind, the importance of lead generation. Actually doing it. There are a lot of agents still out there that just don't believe in that idea. Like, they drag their feet. They will use, that the cost is an issue, or they're not sure how to do it. They don't believe in it, or they've maybe run ineffective ads in the past and didn't get a result. And the question is, well, what do you think your face in an ad's going to do for you? Like it goes back to those agents get stuck in this rut of the traditional way of real estate advertising, which doesn't work. And then they'll use that as an excuse to say, well, those real estates don't work. I've tried them before.
Right.
But that's where, Craig comes in, right? Where, he's created this system of a lead generation. Well, I mean, it's a complete system. We cover everything about somebody's business, but specifically about lead generation, ads that work, that generate good quality leads.
Yeah.
And
And when you
so,
talk about Craig, you're talking about the great Craig Proctor,
oh, the
superstar real
legend,
estate
the
coach,
legend,
right?
right? The legend. Not only great real estate agent, but also great coach.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned the differentiation as being a fundamental principle there. Can you speak a little bit more about that and how Craig
Yeah,
Proctor has taught you and all these other disciples, for lack of a better word,
sure, for
just
sure.
about the importance of that
Well, a
differentiation?
couple things that I'll throw out here is that, first of all, unique selling propositions, right?
Hmm.
That's, at the top of like differentiation. This is where, our agents, like we coach them not to be afraid to put their money where their mouth is, to be accountable to the people that they work with. Okay. And so that right off the bat, like differentiation, because a lot of agents will throw around the word guarantee. But if you press those people further, the average agent who uses that word, willy-nilly, if you will, you press those agents further, there really isn't a guarantee. It's an empty promise. And so, when our agents use the word guarantee, they mean it. If they don't do what they promise, there's a consequence. And that's a really refreshing thing in not just real estate, but just in business in general.
How do you get agents to buy into that concept of making a big, audacious promise?
Well, listen, not everybody is comfortable, whether it be offering to buy someone's home or offering to do it for free, or whether there's another consequence that they want to consider. And so not everybody's necessarily going to run to the I'll buy your home. Now, understand, we coach our members how to do this effectively. We have the paperwork and the direction for people to follow. But still, even with that, sometimes people are a little uncomfortable, but that's okay. There's lots of different guarantees with less scary consequences, if you will, that agents can consider. And so that's what we work with people, right? Get them to be comfortable starting somewhere, and then they can reconsider what they want to offer as a guarantee as they go along.
Right. I'm sure
But
part
the
of it, though, is encouraging people to break out of their comfort zone, change their paradigm.
Well, listen, it goes back to what I said a moment ago about like people just plastering their picture everywhere. Like once again, for every agent that might be successful in a marketplace doing that, spending buckets of money, just plastering their name and face everywhere. And there are agents who are successful. So for every agent that might be successful in a marketplace doing that, understand there are hundreds of agents, or there are thousands of agents that failed miserably doing that, who are probably all out of the business because of the ineffectiveness of that approach. It's not duplicatable. It is luck of the draw. You know what I mean? And so the moment you start to advertise yourself as an agent, but then putting one of these guarantees behind your name, now the public takes notice, right? The public sees that you're different than all the other agents. And what's great about this, Kristie, is it doesn't matter whether you're a brand new agent or not, and whether you're 2 weeks in the business or a 20-year vet. You can make these guarantees, and you can win business up against top producing agents in your office or in your marketplace by having a guarantee, because it is refreshing, and the public wants to see that you want to be accountable.
Absolutely. And it's a memorable piece as well, which can be extremely effective for marketing. Let's talk about marketing a little bit and the importance of lead generation. Why do you think so many agents fail at this? You'd mentioned that it could be lack of budget, it could be lack of knowledge in terms of the media platforms. What are some of the objections or some of the fears that you come across when it comes to lead generation with your agents that you coach?
Like I said, a lot of agents, cost will always be cited as an example, but as an excuse rather. But at the end of the day, this doesn't have to be expensive. And you know this, Kristie.
Mm-hmm.
There's advertising opportunity, paid ads that are reasonable. There are free opportunities that people can explore. So the reality is every agent can work within their comfort zone. Now, once again, I just mentioned that there are free stuff, but the reality is you can't just build a business on the free stuff. What you really want to do is put yourself and your business in a position where you have multiple pillars of lead generation. You're generating leads from different sources. And so you do some paid ads, you do some free stuff, You do some database marketing and sphere marketing and different things like that. I mean, there's multiple pillars you can consider. I'm just using a couple examples. But the reality is you never want to put all your eggs in one basket. And listen, at the end of the day, if you're starting with some free stuff, that's okay. You don't want to build, once again, your business on just that stuff. But there's starting points for everybody, depending on what your situation is. But there are agents who are just reluctant in general about spending any money to improve their business. And that's unfortunate, because I can promise you, if you run an ad and you spend money and you generate good quality leads, motivated leads, it would be really silly not to want to continue to do that for the benefit of your business, right?
Absolutely.
And so, but I think that speaks to like the root of like cost is an issue, but also there are agents out there that think they've done lead generation, but they really haven't. Because what they did was they went out and paid for leads from a lead generation company.
Right.
And that's tough sledding. Like that's really tough when you get those type of online leads, because you're going to be disappointed more often than you are going to get excited.
Yeah, well, why is that, do you think? Is it because the way that those leads are procured, they're just
Well,
they're hard, it is an uphill battle to follow up with them because of how they came in?
so something that we teach in Craig's coaching system is controlling your marketing. Like you want to be able to not only be a real estate agent, but also be a marketer. It's not a responsibility you want to give away. Like you want to be a marketer. So therefore, what we coach people on is lots of different things, but what their target market is, who their ideal customer is, and then we want that to be reflected in the lead generation, the ads that they're doing. And you know this really, really well, Kristie, because you folks help people run ads, whether it be Facebook or Google. Like, so we want to control the marketing, and we want to be able to control the marketing message within that. And so when you hire a lead generation company to just give you leads, you don't know what they're running, where those leads are coming from. I don't want to speak out of turn, but a lot of those companies, all they care about is just giving you something to justify the money you've given them.
Right.
But you got a whole bunch of renters and that's not what you wanted. It can get really frustrating very, very quickly.
Yeah, or they're outside of your market, right? You can't service
Exactly.
them because they're not in your marketplace. I think you've touched on a real issue in this industry and in terms of how digital marketing plays into it. There are so many companies out there that run ads for agents, basically offering access to an MLS, right? So
Right.
so the offer is you give us your information and you can see the listings. There you go. That's it. And then they take those leads and they sell them to the agents to follow up with.
Right.
So there is no control over that message. And the message is only give us your information, we'll give you access to properties. Whereas
Right.
when you can control your marketing, you can come up with a message, craft an offer that is going to hit your ideal target market. So give me some examples of those offers. Like what do you think would be a really strong offer, let's say, for somebody who wanted to target an empty nester in their marketplace?
Okay, so before we get to that, one thing I will say, and you had asked that question earlier about differentiation, and we talked about guarantees as an example of differentiation, but
Hmm.
it's not limited to that.
Yeah,
So you bring up a really good point about MLS. Like, surprise everybody, buyers don't need you to look at properties
right,
because they have access to all of it. They really don't need you. And
right.
so that's really important for us when we're coaching people. And Craig's real big on this, right? Is to make sure that we differentiate ourselves all the time, including the information that we provide people. And
Hmm.
so, a lot of our agents have found great success in promoting off-market, unlisted type homes, right? Hard to find properties. We've got marketing campaigns, and we coach people through this on how to get that. And so now that buyer who's sitting there looking at 4 or 5 potential agents to consider of, contacting for information, now all of a sudden, those 4, 5, 6 other agents are simply offering listings. You're offering something they cannot get.
Hmm.
Hard to find.
Scarcity.
Yeah,
Scarcity is the big key here, yes.
100%.
I've always found that if you can tap into really sort of the primary want or desire of who your target market is, then now you've got a really strong message that you can put out there. And then
Exactly.
it's important to know how to deliver that message and to know how to craft that message. That's where Craig Proctor is a master at that type of marketing.
You cannot be all things to all people, right?
Right.
So it really is important to consider the whole target marketing. And when people hear target marketing, they think of geographic area. That's immediately what they think of. And of course, that's part of it, but that's not limited to just geography.
No.
Once again, it goes back to who is your ideal customer? What's selling in your marketplace? Where are the opportunities for you in your marketplace? And these are the things that we'll work through with people to make
Right.
sure that they're moving down the right path and setting themselves up for success.
Right.
Because I get it. And I've coached, like I said, for over 25 years. I get it. People can get discouraged very, very quickly if they run an ad and it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so we always want to make sure that when our members, particularly when they're starting out and they're rolling out those first ads, and you know this, Kristie, right? We want to make sure that they're set up for success, that they can
Absolutely.
have something right away. Listen, there's no magic pills with our coaching system. There's work that needs to get done. But the value here is that, like, when you have a guide helping you go down this path, avoid mistakes, right? Helping you prioritize like the steps that you're taking, it sure does make that mountain that's in front of you a lot easier to climb, right? Mountain's not as high and not as hard to tackle.
Yeah. Take it step by step and have a system that's easy to follow. And that's exactly what you get with the coaching. So you've essentially given people a framework for creating these irresistible offers, running the ads, generating leads that are going to be their ideal target market. Let's talk a little bit about follow-up
Yes.
because we all know that's where the magic happens, right? It's all in the follow-up.
Right, right, right.
And many agents really struggle with the consistency and the motivation and I guess the system
Yes,
that you
yes,
need
yes.
with that.
I love what you're asking here. I love this
Hmm.
question. So, what agents recognize very quickly is online leads, because that's where a lot of these agents get their leads. They pay for these, companies, that they're a waste of time. And once that realization kicks in,
Mm,
their motivation like disappears when it comes to not only those leads that they purchase, but any lead they have. Like it can be very demoralizing. Like I recognize coaching for as long as I have is that agents don't love following up. They really don't.
no.
And so I think that's another reason agents may not do lead generation that generates a stranger, because they don't want to interact. They don't want to follow up. That's why I think there's, a real comfort level with agents working their own databases. Despite that being limiting, there's great opportunities in everybody's database, don't get me wrong. But once again, as I mentioned earlier, we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. We want to have multiple pillars. So yeah, absolutely we market to our sphere, but that's probably why most agents are focused on that, because A, they don't know how to generate leads anywhere else, and they're most comfortable dealing with the people they know. But when you have bad leads, it is the kiss of death for a lot of agents, because that just confirms to them, well, I'm not going to follow up. These leads are no good. These leads are no good. These leads are no good. And so with Craig's system, as we were talking about a moment ago, Craig has really cracked the code on this. He really has. And so these ads that we run that generate good quality leads that give agents a chance to get a closing, when you have those kind of leads, you will want to follow up. So that element is really, really important. So I know you asked about follow up, and now I'm talking about lead generation, but they're intertwined. Okay? The better the lead, the more excited you will likely be to want to follow up with them. Simple as that.
It'll be much easier for you to pick up the phone and give them a call. Yeah.
Right.
That's
And
a big
listen,
hurdle to get over.
now you bring up a really good point about the phone, is that, so absolutely we're still encouraging members to pick up that phone and make the call, but we know that it is harder than ever to get a hold of people. So we're not naive to that. So that's why Craig has created, alternative follow-up systems to go along with calling prospects. So texting and emailing, remarketing, all different ways of ensuring that we're reaching out to people and getting in front of them. But what Craig wants is that once we generate those leads, we want those people calling us back.
Mm-hmm.
So we're chasing less because people are now reaching back out to us. And so if you run good ads, get good motivated prospects, not only will you be more motivated to follow up with them. But in turn, the better the quality of the lead, the better the chance you have at them reaching back out to you because of your efforts. Okay?
Yes.
So two-way street there. It's about putting yourself in a position to succeed, really. That's what it's going to come down to.
Well, it's also understanding that once the lead is generated, that's not the end of the story.
Yes, right.
There's a whole remarketing strategy that needs to kick in, and a lot of the time there's a fairly long nurture cycle. Usually people come into your world or into your database when they're just getting started with their process, with their research. They may not be ready to meet with somebody. They may not be ready to go out and start looking at homes. They're in that awareness phase, I would say. And now they're aware of who you are.
Sure.
So now it's your job to stay in front of them and stay top of mind so that once they get down to that consideration phase, you're going to be top of the list because you have been emailing, you've been sending them information, you've been sending them property updates. It's a multi-layered
Right. But
approach.
Kristie, let me jump in. And what you're saying is 100% correct. But what we need to add to that is the messages that get put in front of people.
Yes, of course.
You know what I mean? And so, a lot of, we talked earlier about, people just paying lead generation companies for leads. That's just abdicating the responsibility of lead generation. You don't do that. But agents are also guilty of doing that from a follow-up perspective.
Right.
They'll hire a company to send out just random messaging, texts and whatever emails that go out that offer really no value. You spend all this energy generating a lead, but then if you are a nuisance to that prospect, it's very little business that you're going to get from it, right? That's where it comes back to we want to differentiate ourselves from other agents. So not only what we offer, but we want to bring value. We do not want to be a nuisance. We want to deliver to them good quality information that intrigues them, that motivates them to potentially want to reach out to us now or at some point when they are further down the line. But the reality is, what we don't want people to be is like indifferent to us or annoyed by us. What we want to do is we want to stay top of mind but impress them at all times.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think a lot of agents are fearful of that. They don't want to be looked at as the annoying pest. So they tend to shy away from aggressive follow-up campaigns that could be perceived as spammy or um, not helpful to their cause, right?
So now, Kristie, I'm going to jump in and say this. So you're 100% right on this, but this opens up a can of worms, if you will, and maybe it's a discussion for a different day. Something that we also teach in our coaching system is different personality types.
Yes.
Understanding who you are, okay, and your strengths and weaknesses. So that's important. And I'll get back to that in a moment. But also being able to identify who you might be talking to or presenting to, who you're interacting with. If you have a better idea or know what makes them tick, then you'll be able to adapt to situations. You'll be able to adapt to them. And so, it's really important that when you're selling someone, per se, sell to them the way they want to be sold, not the way you want to sell. And so that's a discussion for a different day. But it is a very intriguing but extremely important topic that we teach. And the reason I bring it up is in relation to who each agent is, knowing their strengths and weaknesses. And so I appreciate an agent not wanting to be pushy or salesy, or come across spammy. And of course, our system is not that. What you folks do is not that. So let's be very clear on that. But what the agent has to be honest about is their own personality. Because some personalities are definitely a lot more conservative than others, a little more fearful. Some personalities are definitely more salesperson oriented than others. And so if you fall into a personality type that, sales isn't natural for you, that's okay, by the way. You could be successful in sales no matter what your personality is, as long as you understand this whole personality thing. You understand your own strengths and weaknesses. And in sales, a weakness is sometimes agents feeling that they're being too pushy when they're not. Right? They're being a little too sensitive to that. And so I bring it up just as an extra talk.
I love the topic of different personality types because I think it is so important in sales. And what you said just hits it right on the head. And that is first be aware of your own personality type. Because I've worked with lots of agents who are in that very sort of aggressive, I know that in Craig's program, you guys teach the DISC
Right.
personality
Yeah.
framework. So, like a D would be a very dominant, very aggressive type salesperson who wants to close. Like
Right.
they want to go
Closing's
in
a natural instinct for them. Exactly.
exactly, and they make very effective salespeople, right? Because that's their natural instinct. So for someone like
However,
that,
but hold on, but let me jump in and say this though. So even though they're natural closers, those D's, they have to understand that being a natural closer in sales is a benefit, it's a strength, but it's a weakness in certain situations because the person they're talking to may not be a D, maybe a C, someone who might be a little bit more conservative, let's call it, right?
yes,
And so coming on strong as a closer could ruin that opportunity.
exactly.
So that's where it doesn't matter where you fall in the disc personality, like
Hmm.
there's strengths and there's weaknesses. And so, like I said, it doesn't matter what your personality is or whether sales is natural to you or not. You can be very successful at this, but it's
Right.
just knowing how to deal with others. Okay. But the reason I brought it up once again is that, when I always want to challenge agents to not lie to themselves, self-sabotage themselves. Like blame the leads. The leads are no good when maybe they're not putting in not only the effort that they should, but maybe because sales maybe is not natural to them, they're not being as proactive and on those, say, a phone call as they need to, as an example.
Yeah.
Or in the case of, oh, I don't want to send out a text or an email because I don't want to bother them. Right?
Right.
Understand that's your personality putting a roadblock in front of you. Okay? Because the
Exactly.
texts and the emails, they work. They've been proven over and over again, right? And Craig is a master tester and tracker. And so when he offers something to an agent to do in their business, is tested. It is, it's effective.
It is. And I've heard Craig on the phone and I know exactly how effective he is at doing it. And we going to come back to this idea of consistency being so key because it's easy to fall out of fall out of step in terms of getting to your end goal, which is building your business, generating more business on your own without having to rely on buying leads from other companies or door knocking or
Right.
cold calling, all of these things, all of these old methods of getting more real estate clients. But it is still very, very important, though, to have genuine relationships and to make connections with people. So I mean, we were talking about lead generation and the importance of that, but there's also the aspect of sphere building and communicating with your community in a way that is also going to help you connect with more people. How do you coach agents on that part of the business? Sphere building and getting more meaningful connections with more people.
Yeah, exactly. And so let me touch on a few things here for you. One is the communication. And I'm always amazed how agents, like I said earlier, sometimes they're just comfortable dealing with people within their own sphere.
Hmm.
It's someone they know, it's an easier conversation. But despite that, they make no effort to get business from their database.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'll say is most agents, they may have received referrals in the past, so they know that it's an opportunity, but most agents do not explore it any further. So a lot of agents feel uncomfortable asking people they know for business. Okay? So that's problem number one. Okay?
Hmm.
And so you don't get unless you ask. Okay, so simple, idea in sales. So that's something, is first and foremost. The second thing I find though is that the average agent outside of our system who might ask for a referral, they don't do it enough. And when they do it, they'll typically say something like, "Hey, Kristie, referrals are the lifeblood of my business. And, the markets haven't been great over the last, couple of years, but I'm really excited about this spring. I really want to help a lot of families, buy and sell homes and really kind of take my business to the next level." They'll say
Yeah.
something like that. No, on the surface, you might think that's good, but if you really think about it, it's a very selfish thing to say. You know what I mean? Talking about the market and trying to build your business. You could sprinkle in, I want to help families. Sure, you can do that. But at the core of that, it's all about you and your business. Essentially, you making money. And so the reality is you have to be careful, right? Because the perception people might have is real estate agents make way too much money. Some people might have that perception, or they are experiencing maybe economic challenges in their own life. Like they don't care about your income, right? And if they have their own issues, right? So going down that road could be risky, but in our system, our members are making referrals mean something, and it's not about them. It's about potentially helping a worthy cause, a charity.
Yes.
And so we have very specific marketing. So listen, lots of agents choose charities to support. That isn't the gold mine, okay? What's really important is how you position it, the words you use. We were talking about follow-up a moment ago. I'm just going to jump back to that for a sec. That's actually another area that, Craig Proctor really excels at is, teaching real estate agents on how to have the right conversation, proper scripting, objection handling, right? Making compelling offers. Words matter. And the words you choose in your scripting, in your marketing, whatever, is really, really important. And so how you word the charity and how you position it is what makes it successful.
Let's can we talk a little bit about the scripting, because I know that it is super important to pay attention to those scripts and follow them, but I'm sure that most people have a hard time with it. What is it about following a script that people seem to struggle with?
Oh, you mean back to the phone conversation? Yeah.
I guess, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
going
So,
back to that.
yeah. I mean, listen, building a business is not easy. Let's be honest. That's what makes a coaching system like Craig's fantastic, because it really kind of puts people down the right path, like we were talking about earlier. But I have to tell you, like this area is, over my 25 plus years of coaching, is one of the bigger challenges that I have
Yes.
with agents. And I got to tell you, it's not as much about the script itself, like, because we present very easy to follow scripting. Okay, we're not throwing 28 pages at you of scripting that you need to memorize. Like, we really do keep it simple. It's one of the golden elements of our system is our universal callback script. And that script can be used not only on the phone when you're talking to a prospect. I was just talking to a member I work with this morning, and I was saying, like, it doesn't matter. You could be in the grocery line waiting and strike up a conversation with somebody. You use that script. You can be at a barbecue this spring, this summer, and you meet somebody. You use that script. It's for everybody. So, and it doesn't matter what ad you run to generate a lead. Like, it really is very universal. And so this is like, it's a gold mine as far as like looking at Craig's experience with follow-up. I don't know anybody better at following up than Craig, I got to be honest with you. And to take his experience and what he knows and to put it into a script is amazing. So it's not as much the script. I mean, sometimes we'll have that issue. People, try to recreate the wheel, or they think they know it better. They think they're natural or effective on the phone, say, with somebody, and so they veer off. But very quickly, those members, we can get them back on track. Okay. Because the key there is that they're still making their calls. They're still talking to people. They're just kind of recreating the wheel, like I said, or trying to do their own thing. But they're making the call. That's the key, right? Is that the biggest challenge is getting people to make those calls. The call reluctance. A lot of real estate agents, when they get into the business, they start by cold calling, door knocking or cold calling.
Right.
And that burns people out.
That's a
It
tough.
really, really does.
Yeah.
And now in this day and age, though, just generally speaking, the number of like spam calls people get throughout the day is rampant.
It's
Right?
unbelievable.
It's
Yeah. I
unbelievable,
mean,
right? And
yeah.
so you throw that factor in where agents are sensitive to that. They don't want to be clumped into that same category, and so all that does is work to deter them from actually making a call. The script's there. And so for anybody who is taking the step of picking up that phone and making the call or sending a text or an email, they're setting themselves up for success. The tools are right there for them to use. Sometimes we gotta nudge people to do it. And so call reluctance, follow-up reluctance can be an issue. But once again, very quickly when an agent realizes, oh, the leads I'm generating, these are actually good quality leads, I have an opportunity to make some money, then that spark gets ignited. And we just need to get a little bit of a flame going under them to see the opportunity that's there. But once again, as I said earlier, like, it is harder to get people on the phone, but that's okay. We still make the effort, and then we add in the text, the emails, remarketing, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Stay
But
top of mind.
the key there, Kristie, and this is what I said about lead generation as well, like, these are all intertwined, right? Doing one thing is typically a bad idea. So doing one ad in one pillar of lead generation, not a good idea. We want to be generating leads from different sources. And so even if you're running Google ads, for instance, that's a pillar. Google AdWords, right, is a pillar, but doing one ad is limiting. Right? Now you can start with one ad, and as you see success, you can start to use that success as a confidence boost to run a second ad. You know what I mean? And so, but the same thing here with follow-up. We don't just do one thing. We're not just suggesting that you pick up the phone and call, right? Because that would be a mistake, right? It's about having multiple ways of approaching this.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is what makes this a system, not just one particular method or channel, right? And as a digital marketer, I also understand the importance of not just relying on one particular channel, right? You're just setting yourself up for, it can be very effective. I remember back in the day when Facebook's just first started their ad program, it was an extremely effective way of generating leads. We were getting tons and tons of leads, but we're also seeing a lot of things getting shut down, right? We saw accounts being disabled, and all sorts of issues came about as Facebook was growing and learning and adjusting their platform. So that caused a major disruption for some people. So I totally agree. If you are just relying on one particular method, you're going to be vulnerable, right? You should have multiple channels, multiple streams, multiple pillars.
100%.
That way, if something happens with one, you've got others that you can easily maybe put a little bit more into or scale up or whatever you need to do.
Well, but Kristie, I'll add this, is that, you guys help run ads for people, right? You have a management program, which is fantastic, but there's something to be said about that as well, where you guys are experts at this. And when a member, and listen, agents can do this on their own, right? They can set up their own accounts, they can run their own ads, but the challenge is when there is a challenge, when there is an issue that pops up. Now there's panic, and the moment somebody gets panicked, they paralyze, and a lot of times everything in their business freezes. There's inaction, right? They're stuck in a spot, right? Because now they don't know how to fix this problem. So I will say that that's one of the advantages of using you guys for management, is you're the experts. You guys take care of it, right? Yeah.
That is true. I do strongly recommend that if you are serious about running your own ad campaigns, you hire an expert to do that. And yes, as far as what we do with our members is we want them to have a proactive approach when it comes to their marketing, right? We're not necessarily interested in telling someone exactly what they should be doing and then collecting their money, right? We want to know more about your marketplace. We want to know who your ideal target market is. And working with Craig Proctor members all of these years has almost trained us on how to be a more collaborative digital marketing agency and sometimes people don't want that, to be honest. They'll come to us and say, just give me an ad that works. Right? Here's my money. I just want leads. And that's fine. We certainly know enough about it to be able to set them up with something, but we also know that, as you said, the more involved they are in that process of creating the campaigns and picking their target market and being involved in that conversation, the more they're going to value the leads and the more attention they're going to put into those leads.
For sure. Absolutely. But what you're doing is you're giving the agent control of their marketing.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really, really important. Listen, there are ads that can be customized, and then there's, the standard ads that our system provides people, and an agent can run those. But one thing that is really, really important that with the agents in our system is that we're always looking at the response that an agent gets. It's not a set it and forget it situation. Right. We always let the response dictate that next step. What change needs to be made, if any, to an ad. And that's what's really, really important, is that the agent is involved in not just being a real estate agent, but they they view themselves as a marketer.
Hmm.
And I do find that like that's a big breakthrough for agents is when they understand that distinction. Okay, that they're going to spend honestly the majority of their time as a real estate agent because that's what they are. But the agents that understand that they have to take some time out of their day every day to be a marketer. So not a real estate agent. So not banging a sign in a lawn, real estate agent thing, right? Or even making a follow-up call or meeting with a buyer or seller. Very, very important things, right? Getting in front of a potential customer in a presentation situation, very, very important. But that's a real estate agent task. So the moment, and we teach our members on this, right, is to understand the distinction between working in their businesses versus working on their businesses. So working in the business, they're a real estate agent, okay, doing real estate agent stuff. And that's where they'll spend, like I said, the majority of their day. But then there's going to be some time that needs to be set aside every day to do the non-real estate agent stuff, to do the business building stuff, okay? You look at some of our most successful members, they don't just review themselves as real estate agents. They're marketers, they're business owners, they're entrepreneurs, they're strategists.
Right.
Like they have a different mindset. And it's not necessarily natural for people to think that way, but they start to have that understanding being part of our system. And so, yeah, so being a marketer and understanding that is really, really important. So it's not this, there's no set it and forget it here. If you have an ad that's working and continuing to work, no problem, let it roll. But we don't ignore it. We're always keeping an eye on it. You guys are keeping an eye on it. But we also now look at what the next ad opportunity might be.
Right.
It could be a variation on the ad that you're already running that's working. But now we're going to try a little bit of a tweak. Because
Right.
2 ads that are humming along and rocking and rolling, better than just 1. Right?
That's for sure.
And when you have an ad that's working, meaning it's generating good quality leads, giving you an opportunity to get a closing, it's infectious. You'll want to run more of those ads. You won't want to stop.
Yeah.
Now you
Well,
can
I
run
think that is the paradigm shift
Right.
that takes place is from I'm just a realtor to I am a marketer, I'm a business owner.
Right.
I need to be focusing on business building activities, not just the day-to-day busy
Right.
tasks of being a realtor.
So, I mean, so we look at the work in versus work on the business. So, real estate agent versus being a marketer, for instance.
Right.
So, that distinction is important. But once again, it has to be done every day. You have to have time every day where you can step out of being a real estate agent and you can be that marketer, that business owner, the strategist, the entrepreneur. But the other thing, agents really need to pay attention to is the non-dollar productive tasks. Okay, because those can really bog you down. So you want to be careful about that. I mentioned a moment ago, like being in front of a buyer or seller in a presentation situation. Okay, that's top dollar, right? Because that gives you a chance to get a client sign on the dotted line.
Yes.
Follow-up is top dollar, right? Because that gets you to transition those people from that prospect stage to an appointment. Okay,
Right.
therefore giving you a chance to get a client. So those are dollar productive, but you got to be careful about the non-dollar productive stuff. This is where you, as an agent, you don't want to be guilty of lying to yourself that you're busy being a real estate agent. Agents will be like, I'm super busy, but they're not making any money. They're not closing deals. It doesn't equal out, right? If you're putting all this time, energy, and effort in, the result should be closings. But when you look at sometimes the work that, before somebody joins our system, you look at the work they're doing, it's all non-dollar productive stuff.
Yeah.
Giving them very little chance to be successful. So that's also something we work with members is to understand that distinction. If you're a solo agent, that's fine. But now we have to set really good priorities. Okay? Understand dollar productive versus non-dollar productive. Working in versus working on the business.
Yeah, very, very strong core coaching principles. And I'm sure there are
100%.
conversations that you have again and again with people, despite how long they've been in the coaching program, because I think it's one of those things that as a business owner, you always have to be thinking about generating more business, and you have to be thinking about making your customers super happy. You have to be thinking about delivering wow moments to inspire people to think of you and refer you and
Right.
all of these things, right? So we're not saying that everyone should be doing all these things all the time. We're here to help with those things, right? We're here to assist you in making sure that those things get done.
Sure.
Yeah, but the awareness of the importance of those activities is key. I mean, as you said, people should be reminding themselves of that every single day.
Yeah, people shy away from things they don't like, or they shy away from things that are uncomfortable for them. So we talked earlier about call reluctance, right? Let's pull that back in for a moment.
Hmm.
So that task of following up with someone is extremely high dollar. It's one of the most important things you can do, but it's one of the first things that agents want to avoid.
Yep.
You know what I
They'll
mean?
find every excuse in the book
Right.
not to
Every
do it.
excuse. Something that we're working on now with members that seems to scare people is, we talk about social media, an extremely important tool in, creating content, but
Mm.
videos, which, as you know, Kristie, are very important on social media platforms, extremely engaging and effective. A lot of agents are afraid of producing videos, and because they don't like the way they look, they don't like the way they sound. But the
Hmm.
issue is not with anybody else except themselves.
Yeah, get over it.
Nobody
Get
else is
over
thinking
it.
about what they look like or how they sound. You know what I mean? But so that's where agents have to be very, very careful about, getting their egos, emotions in the way, their personality, the weaknesses of their personality, getting those in the way,
Mm.
doing what can really help build a very successful business.
Yeah. Video is absolutely essential, I would say now, and people are starting, I think, to be more open to it. And I think what's so great about the coaching system is, again, you're supplying the members with scripts and topics and frameworks and things that they can do each and every day to
Right.
to create that content. And then we come in and help them distribute it, deliver it, get it in front of your ideal audience.
Right. If an agent is willing to take action and put the work they need to truly build a successful business, using our tools to do so, it's a recipe for success, right? And with your assistance as well. But people have to be willing to take that action. You know what I mean? That's key, it's an old adage in anything. It's just you got to do it. You got
Yep.
to take the steps. You got to take the action. And what's great about a coaching system like Craig's is that we help people avoid the mistakes that they're likely to make, so we
Yeah.
can fast track them to success. For a lot of agents who may have been in the business for a long, long time, it's really great at making real estate fun again for them.
Mm.
That's pretty rewarding. When you have a grizzled vet who's all grumpy and on the verge of wanting to get out of the business, and then we're able to turn their perspective around to do something different. I'm proud of those type of members, by the way. Look at that. I would never dismiss anybody's success story. A success story is a success story. I love them all. But there's certain members and stories that kind of are quite emotional for me. Like,
Yeah, can you give
yeah,
us
well,
an example
like
of a
yeah,
transformation that you so you don't have to
without
name
yeah,
names?
without naming names, but like that one is one that I do enjoy, right? Is somebody who might be on the verge of wanting to get out of real estate. And so joining our coaching program might be their last kick at the can. And you have to
Mm.
imagine when somebody gets to that point in their business, there's a certain grumpiness that goes there. You know what I mean?
A
And
lot of
so
preconceived notions.
yeah, but it's amazing to see those people, turn once again their perspective around, or the rags to riches story. People who might be living in their cars or in a storage unit. Breaks my heart. Or crashing on someone's couch while they're trying to power through building their business. But those people I have nothing but respect for, because despite their situation, they're not letting their current situation dictate where they're going or what their future can look like. Single moms, single parents who have the weight of the world on their shoulders, trying to juggle the kids and life while trying to juggle their business. And to see those kind of scenarios translate, I get all emotional thinking about it, just because there's
Yeah.
people that come to my mind that it's incredible. It's
Yeah.
incredible to see it. And that's what makes coaching so rewarding. When people
Those
put in the work.
success stories
Yeah,
that
people put in
make
the
it all
work
worthwhile.
and the results are there, and it's great to be part of that, It really, really is.
You have been a part of many of those stories, and I think that it certainly is a great place, I think, for us to land this plane. So I want to thank you, Frank, for
No,
taking some time
thank you,
out
Kristie.
of your
It's always a
holiday.
pleasure talking to you. You know that.
This is the thing. Frank and I will get on the call, and he'll say, I'm going to be super quick. It's
Give
just
me
going to be
5 minutes, Kristie. Give me 5 minutes, and then an hour and
an
a half
hour
later.
later.
Yeah, an hour and a half later, we're still gabbing. So I'm
Yeah.
surprised you're cutting me off at an hour.
I want to be respectful of your time, and I know that you've
I
probably got
appreciate it.
other things to do. But as always, it's been an awesome conversation. I knew it would be. We never seem to have a shortage of things to talk about, and I think that hopefully the people listening will also be inspired to check out Craig Proctor Coaching. I'm sure you can find it very easily, craigproctor.com. Frank DeMarinis, amazing coach that would be more than happy to help you transform your real estate business.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
then, of course, you could always work with us here at Success Website to take some of that lead generation work as far as placing ads and building follow-up systems off your plate. So let's just leave it there,
Yeah.
Frank.
But
Thank you
Kristie,
so
let me
much.
just say one thing though. Anybody who's watching this, listening to this, who's made it to this point in the session, like first of all, thank you, but also congratulations because most agents don't invest that sort of time to try to learn more, get better. So congratulations to anybody who is, and yeah, wish everybody all the best.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye everyone.